Hey Duke, NBA agent believes Duke was the cause of Cam Reddish's downfall. What? What a strange opinion. Let's analyze the news. First, subscribe to the channel to receive more news about Duke. Rich Paul's statement sounded strange at first glance, almost provocative, but it carries nuances that deserve to be analyzed more carefully when the subject is Cam Reddish and his time at Duke basketball. The most influential agent in the NBA doesn't question the player's talent. On the contrary, he praises him from the beginning, describing a fluid athlete, capable of scoring 50 points naturally, someone who seemed destined for an unequivocal leading role. The point raised by Paul is less about individual failure and more about the extremely specific context in which Reddish was placed at the university. Duke, at that time, brought together a concentration of talent rarely seen. Zion Williamson wasn't just a prospect. He was a media and sporting phenomenon who redefined games with his strength, explosiveness, and immediate impact. R.J. Barrett, in turn, had the ball in his hands, rhythm, volume, and an offensive clarity that naturally positioned him as a reference point on the perimeter. Within this machine, Reddish needed to assume a functional role, often more focused on floor spacing, defense, and quick decision-making than on the creative freedom that had made him a star in high school. This doesn't diminish Duke basketball, on the contrary. The program offered Reddish an environment of extremely high competitive demands, maximum exposure, and daily interaction with players who would also be high draft picks. From this perspective, Duke doesn't limit, it tests. The internal level of pressure, the speed of the game, and the need for adaptation are part of the formative process that the program has always imposed on its athletes. Not everyone emerges from this scenario as an immediate protagonist, but many leave more complete, better prepared to understand the game at a professional level. Rich Paul's observation about the psychological impact of being the third option isn't unfounded, but it also reveals how much Duke functions as a reality lab. In the NBA, few players enter as the absolute center of the project. Learning to coexist with other talents, to accept variable roles, and to perform even without the main spotlight is a skill required at the highest level. Reddish was exposed to this early on, perhaps too early for a player accustomed to always being the best on the court. The contrast between pre-draft status and post-draft reality also weighs heavily. Being projected as a top 5 pick and only being selected 10th, especially behind a player like DeAndre Hunter, adds layers of pressure and frustration that extend beyond college. Duke doesn't control what happens at that moment, nor the circumstances of trades, rotations, or development that an athlete faces in the professional environment. The NBA is unforgiving, and trajectories rarely follow straight lines. Still, Reddish's time at Duke basketball shouldn't be seen as a misstep, but as a complex chapter in a career that began with almost unrealistic expectations. The Blue program offered maximum stage, structure, competition, and visibility. If the fit wasn't perfect, that says more about the uniqueness of that historic roster than about any institutional failure. On a team with Zion and RJ, nobody would be the same player they were before, and perhaps that was the biggest lesson. Cam Reddish's career became a reminder that talent, context, and time don't always go hand in hand. Duke basketball fulfilled its role. It exposed the player to the highest possible level before the NBA. The rest, as almost always happens, was left to circumstances, choices, and the difficult transition to a league where potential needs to translate into concrete production every day. Share your opinion.